Coming up on this episode of The Social Hour, Instagram is coming to Android someday, but honestly, when? Plus, inspiration galore on Pinterest.com. And what happens when you need to get a social media message across in more than one language? All that plus pizza on the moon, maybe, on this episode of The Social Hour.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for the Social Hour is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is The Social Hour, episode 24 with Sarah Lane and Amber MacArthur, recorded Friday, September 2nd, 2011. This episode of The Social Hour is brought to you by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/social hour. And by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies on your PC, your Mac, iPad, iPhone, or TV instantly. All streamed directly to you, saving you time, money, and hassle. For your free 30-day trial, go to netflix.com/twit. Hey everybody, welcome to The Social Hour, episode 24 from Petaluma, California. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And Sarah, it's almost fall.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it's already September. The summer went. It's funny, in San Francisco, we all joke about how summer is just starting because most of our summer is encased in fog. But it does feel weird. When I was driving out of the city this morning, I realized, oh, now those kids that haven't been in school that take a really long time to, we have the crossing guard and all of that stuff. It's like, it's back to the rest of the year sort of schedule, and summer just passed us by.
I can't believe it. I know. I went in to get my haircut yesterday, and there were a bunch of kids in there, getting their back-to-school haircuts, and they had their little bags, and just thinking, wow. I don't know, there's sometimes with me, I like the fall, but there's a bit of, I don't know, it's sadness, to say goodbye to summer, especially if you live in a place where you know that eventually the snow is coming, and that will be happening here in the next few months.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like the Bay Area is almost better in the winter, and people might disagree with me on that, but we don't have too much of a weather difference here. I mean, fall happens, winter happens, it starts raining, but there's definitely no snow and not a lot of the extreme weather that you get up in Toronto. So we're shooting on a different day. Anybody who's watching the live stream knows that usually our show is shot live on Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 12:12 p.m. Eastern. But since it's going to be Labor Day for those of us in the U.S. on Monday, Amber and I are shooting a little bit early. So for anybody who was able to jump in to the live stream and into chat, thanks for joining us. And if you're watching later, then it doesn't matter. You can still watch us on Labor Day if you feel like it. Still don't have to do any labor, just watching.
You don't have to do any work to watch the show. You can just watch, or you can tune in and listen, subscribe to the show. I mean, you just can sit back and get educated about all of the latest in social media. And there's no shortage of things happening, as always, Sarah.
That's true. In fact, the saga continues about whether or not Instagram is ever coming to Android. And I have to laugh at this Read Write Web article because they don't say anything that we don't already know. Instagram has said for a long time now. In fact, Amber, you were out on 1 week back last year. I think it was back in October. And I filled in for you on Net at Night with Leo. And we had the founders of Instagram on, and they had reached a milestone. They had gotten to 200,000 users in just a few weeks, and they were just flabbergasted. They couldn't believe they had caught on. And at that point, we said, well, it's iOS only, but you're obviously very new, and you're going to want to take it to Android. And they said, oh, of course. And here we are, going on a year later, and their growth is, it has absolutely mushroomed, but they're still not on Android.
I know, and there's really still no web experience to speak of, really, right? I know, I can't believe it. I mean, I was kind of laughing at the article too. Instagram plans to build an Android version ... eventually. I don't think that was a big surprise to a lot of people. We knew they were planning on it down the road, but it has taken them longer than I can remember any piece of technology taking to actually get out into other platforms. And even though they've had such great success on the iOS platform. So a bit of a surprise there, but hopefully this means that it is actually coming, not just eventually, but soon, maybe in the next few weeks. Because I know a lot of people who aren't iPhone users definitely are dying to use this app.
See, I agree. Although I did mention that it was on one of our other shows. It might have even been on the Social Hour a couple weeks ago, where Android folks are just dying to get on Instagram. It's something they haven't participated in. And I got some feedback from Android people saying, no, we're not. We're not dying to be on Instagram. If they don't want us, we have all sorts of other apps that we can use, and it's not as if we don't have other social outlets. And I have to say, I think that Instagram knows that. And it's not that they don't want the ridiculously huge millions of Android users to be part of Instagram. Of course they do. But I would not be surprised if an iPad-enabled app came out before an Android app did, or they worked harder on the Instagram experience itself. Even though I love it, I've gotten to the point now where I don't even want to use the default filters that Instagram provides me because my pictures will look too much like other people's pictures. So I actually use other apps to filter my pictures and then import them into Instagram. So it's like I'm making it harder on myself. But I think that Instagram is aware that the experience for the user base that they do have can be improved on before they even take it to Android. So I don't think it's coming to Android. I mean, I don't even think it would be coming to Android before the end of the year. And that's speculative, but that's what I think.
Yeah, you know what? Who knows what they're thinking right now in terms of developing for other platforms. All I know is I would like to see it go beyond the iPhone because, not everybody is using the iPhone, and it would just be nice to see it expand a little bit. But like you said, I mean, they have a pretty diehard community, I think, right now with iPhone users, so maybe they don't want to mess with that. We'll see what happens with it down the road. I use both a BlackBerry and an iPhone, so I go between both of them, and I just find it's one of those things, like when I'm on my BlackBerry and I take a picture, I think, this would be so much better with Instagram if I could add a filter, because I'm just not a great photographer. And I find the filters they're like a crutch for me, Sarah.
Yes, me too. I actually have gotten so good at taking a picture. It's like it's practically in the dark, and then I'll know what filter, will brighten it up really nicely. I took a picture of a wine bottle the other night. I mean, I was basically in like a candlelit room. It was very dark. And it ended up being okay, but I had some external filters. Dave Moore in our chat room said, I think the delay with Instagram is manpower. He says, I think they only have 5 folks now. You're right, Dave. In fact, they just hired their 6th. So it's a small team. I mean, I don't think they had any idea that it was going to be so successful so quickly. So, and someone else made the point in our chat room, well, why would you take it to the iPad that has a crappy camera before you take it to a bunch of Android phones that have great cameras? I don't think it's so much about who has the better camera. I think it's more of they're already on iOS, so it just sort of makes sense to create some sort of more universal app for the iPad because they're halfway there. They're more than halfway there, whereas Android is a whole nother thing. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
It's a mystery.
It is. It is a mystery.
The Instagram mystery. What are they doing over there?
Yeah.
Maybe we should have them back on the show and get an update straight from the source. That would be really good. Sarah, another interesting headline has to do with LinkedIn. We constantly talk on the show about LinkedIn, and although it's really great if you're out there looking for a job, oftentimes I don't find myself going there on a regular basis. However, once in a while they turn out some interesting stats and infographics. This most recent blog post that they wrote is called Sequencing the Startup DNA on LinkedIn. So they use the data on LinkedIn to do something kind of cool. This time they talk about things that have to do with, or stats that have to do with the startup world. For instance, the top 10 most entrepreneurial business schools, Stanford being at the top, the average age of founders, and as you can see, the list of things goes on and on.
I kind of like the average age of founders because even though I don't think I'm the right candidate to start a company, I don't know, too much pressure. I'd rather talk about them. I see that I am still in the age bracket where most people start companies, 30 to 39. So, hey, I've got time.
You're ready, Sarah. Me too. What should we do?
You know what's sad is, like, look at this. Age 50 and over, 5% of founders that are represented on LinkedIn are 50 and over. Geez, it's not like you stop being smart at, well, I guess your priorities start shifting. So when you finally get to the 50 and up bracket, maybe you're not doing a lot of new companies.
I think too, because I mean, although because this is sort of exclusive to LinkedIn, clearly there's a lot of 50 plus people who maybe aren't using LinkedIn. So the numbers could be higher. There could be more founders, right? I would imagine. But I think it's kind of fun when they take this data and they put it out there in a way that makes it so easily digestible and just gives you a sense of the type of people who are using the service. And, it's kind of fun to say, average position length held before the startup, 2.5 years, different fields of studies, most entrepreneurial majors. Entrepreneurship is at the top. Not a big surprise there.
Yeah.
And least entrepreneurial majors, nursing is at the bottom. And then there's a bunch of different industries in between.
It's too bad that nurses can't be Well, I guess there's just not a huge market for that. It's also interesting that so many entrepreneurs end up coming from big companies. And when I say entrepreneurs, I mean founders, people who are starting companies from nothing. Yahoo, eBay, Microsoft. I looked at the Windows logo. Microsoft, Apple, Google. I mean, these are big companies, and I think you hear this a lot from startup founders who say, I learned so much at X company, huge, big, 1,000+ person company, but it's part of why I realized I needed to start my own company, because I see how the big machine didn't work for me. I think there's an entrepreneurial thing that a lot of people who start companies have in common, where they're not comfortable working in that kind of infrastructure. And they're okay taking a leap of faith with an idea, and not a lot of money to get out of that.
It's funny because one thing I don't think you see on here is gender. And I can only imagine one of the reasons it's not on here is because it's totally skewed as far as there being way more men who are launching companies than women. So it's kind of funny because you don't see that. Although I would imagine that would be a pretty easy stat to pull, but it might not be something that people want to, highlight or spotlight.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's still so many. I swear, every conference that I go to, as the years go by, is still that you have your panels, women in tech. Why aren't there more women in tech? The panel of the women entrepreneurs that anybody could think of, that you can count on one hand type of thing. There are more and more women in the startup industry, and I can think of more than a few right now, but they are much less represented than the men in the field. So I think that those sorts of stats are still so glaringly skewed towards men that, yeah, when you put something like that up there, the women get, their feathers get ruffled, and then everyone else says, well, but nobody's trying to hold women back. It's a very delicate conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's one of those things where there are a lot of amazing women in tech that are doing great things. However, don't necessarily, I'm thinking of startups, and I know women who have launched startups, but I find they also just don't get the attention or the coverage sometimes that males get, like generally speaking, So I think it's eventually 10 years down the road, I hope it's a very different situation.
I do too. Speaking of women, and I don't know why this is, a study from allfacebook.com, well, they didn't do the study, but they're talking about the study. It actually came from a marketing agency called Social Code, that women click on more Facebook ads than men, quite a few more.
Yeah, I thought this was kind of fun. I mean, I think there are people out there who are wondering with their social media marketing efforts if they should advertise on Facebook. It's kind of an easy thing to do in the sense it doesn't cost a lot of money, and you can really target the type of people that you're trying to reach out to. So I love data like this. One stat I noticed, women age 50 and older are even more likely to click advertisements at a rate of 31.2% higher than young adults. So that's something I think people who are advertising might want to know. And then they find that men over 50 years old have an 11% lower rate than younger males. So a big difference between men and women on Facebook as far as actually clicking through to some of those advertisements that are being profiled there.
It's interesting when you actually look at the breakdown of the study Social Code did, and this was over a course of 10 months, I guess. Over 50 million, data that was supplied by over 50 million client companies in a variety of industries, they say. So you figure, well, okay, it's pretty general. It's not just that women click on more ads, but it's also the older that people get. They tend to click on more ads. And you think to yourself, okay, well, one of the obvious reasons that younger people might think of is they're confused because they don't realize that they're clicking on an ad. Well, that probably accounts for some of it. But on Facebook, I don't know, ads seem pretty obvious to me. I mean, I never click on ads on Facebook, and believe me, it's not because I have anything wrong with Facebook ads. I don't really click on ads in general, but I definitely don't on Facebook, and I don't think that maybe they are tricking people. But maybe it has more to do with if you are maybe in an older age bracket and happen to be a woman, something that strikes you as a deal might be something that you're more apt to investigate, whereas if you're in the younger, I mean, I'm younger than 50, so I'll go ahead and say that I'm part of the younger generation. I know that a lot of times this sort of thing is a scam, or, you know, it's not as good of a deal as you think it's going to be. There's probably a lot of factors.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And I'd be curious, though, as far as, you know, the amount of time that that demographic is spending online as well. Like, I'm just curious if an older generation tends to sit there for longer periods, maybe, and, you know, they're more likely to kind of click ads, so they're poking around, whereas some of us may kind of dive in and then leave Facebook. That's how I use it. I don't really sit on it. I dive in for 15 minutes and I leave, so I don't really have that time to click on ads. But I think of my mom, I mean, chances are she may sit on Facebook for like 45 minutes and, you know, routinely go in and check on everybody in our family in terms of what they're doing and look at pictures. So it's more immersive. I don't know, just going out on a limb there.
No, I think you're right. It's interesting. Clicking on ads on Facebook. Have you been fooled? Let us know.
I have never clicked on an ad in Facebook. However, now I'm curious and I'm going to go poking around because they do, I mean, for the most part, they do appear pretty seamless, right? So I think that for someone who may not be as internet savvy, it may just look like, you know, an interesting link that they want to follow and they may not recognize it as sponsored.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm on my Facebook page right now, and I've got a chat window open. I'll go ahead and close that. But the only thing I'm really getting is a deal. But if I go to my profile, it's like I almost have to go looking for ads. Okay, so I've got something from Crowd Daily, best crowdsourcing site, build a reputation, blah, 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 Nordstrom shoe clearance, dinner at Harris, and Mobilize conference. Okay, well, yeah. I mean, I don't even see that stuff. I really don't. It's like, I know that there's an ad area under my events. You know, I know Facebook doesn't want to hear this, that I've been so good at, you know, it's almost like I have like some sort of a Chrome extension in my brain where I just ad block everything.
Okay, we just need to like take that clip out of the show. Sarah Lane has a Chrome extension in her brain. Not many people would know exactly what that meant, Sarah, and appreciate it, but that is definitely a good promo for the show.
Well, good. I'm glad. Okay, so before we get to some of the other news stories of the week, quick reminder that, again, we record the show live normally on Mondays. We're doing it on an off day today because Labor Day is on Monday. 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We'd love to have you join us. But if you can't, if you're busy, if your work's going crazy, your boss is mad at you, don't worry about it. You can always visit us at twit.tv/TSH. You'll also see our new fancy schmancy webpage. Twit has a whole new website. The Social Hour is no exception. So all of our past episodes are there with some descriptions to give you an idea of what the episode's about, so you can dive into our archive and watch shows that you might have missed before, you want to watch again. Audio feeds as well, so if you're like, hey, I love your show, but I really don't have time to watch the video, or I drive a lot, we hear that all the time. You can subscribe to audio as well. And then maybe you can, if there's anything that we talked about that was visual that you missed, you can go back and watch the video feed later. You can watch the show straight from each episode page. Download the video, subscribe through iTunes, all the good stuff. You can even embed the video. That's kind of a new thing that we're offering as well. So we make it as easy as possible for you to enjoy the show. And we even added Google Plus buttons that we didn't have a few days ago. We'd have them now. So if you're big on Google Plus or Facebook or Twitter, this is a really easy way to share an episode that you enjoyed with as many people as possible. So thanks for the support, everybody, and get the word out. Social Hour. Okay, let's talk about Audible. Why should we talk about Audible? Because they're awesome, and they're sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. audiblepodcast.com/social hour is our special URL. What's that going to do for you? Why? It's going to get you a free audiobook of your choice. Any book that you can find at audible.com, which is, you have a lot of choices because there are over 75,000 book, nonfiction, fiction, periodical titles. I always want to mention periodicals because I think a lot of people think audiobooks are, you know, Oprah list type of stuff or New York Times bestseller list type of stuff. That is all represented. But, for example, I pulled up audiblepodcast.com/social hour because that's actually a code that I haven't used yet. I've actually used a code for a different show in the past. But I think I'd like to get a free audiobook. This is The New Yorker from April 30th, 2007. Now, I wasn't a New Yorker subscriber back in 2007, so I love this idea. It's almost like it's some sort of a Wayback Machine. And this is actually the issue read to you, gives you a summary of what's going on in that issue, so you can be like, oh, okay, interesting. There was an article about, it's the workforce, stupid, why Wall Street no longer rewards layoffs. Okay, that's kind of interesting since our economy is kind of toileted right now. And then you can go ahead and listen to an audio excerpt and see if it's the kind of thing you would be interested in.
Welcome to the April 30th, 2007 issue. There are 7 articles. In the comment, Adam Gopnik says there's more to discuss in terms of why the shootings at Virginia Tech happened.
Ooh, so, okay, that was a big story back in 2007.
Nick Palmgarten listens into some post-Imus sports talk radio.
Don Imus.
On the financial page, James Surowiecki looks at why Wall Street has gotten wise to the downside of layoffs. Then, John Lahr profiles screenwriter...
So you get the idea. This is it. I love this stuff. It's like, ooh, wow, it's such a point in time that, of course, if we were to research it, we would remember that all of this stuff was happening in April of 2007. But it's kind of a neat thing. So Audible it's good for a lot of that stuff, as well as many, again, bestsellers, current releases. You really have your pick of the kind of books or just anything that you want to listen to that you would like. So again, audiblepodcast.com/social hour is our special URL for you to get your free book, anything you want, the free title of your choice. And if you're already an audible.com subscriber, thank you. We appreciate it. Tell a friend. Get them on the bandwagon. Give them our special code, and they can get a free book. It's like you gave them a birthday present, and you don't have to spend a dime. You're welcome. All right, so Amber, moving on to a little bit more news. I've started to get really sick of these articles, and often they're written by, I don't want to generalize that local news is in any way not getting social media, but I happen to see a lot of these stories that are covered by local news outlets. This particular story came from Tampa Bay, and it was a story about a college party that went viral, I guess for lack of a better word, and it was sort of a back-to-school party that was happening in Colorado. University of, it might have been University of CSU, and they had the people who organized the party lived at some apartment complex. They have a picture on the site that, you know, it doesn't look like anything that's too fancy. They had advertised, hey, come to this back-to-school party. It's going to be the party of the year. You're going to love it. About 2,000 people ended up RSVPing on their Facebook page alone. And, of course, too many people showed up. Some people got hurt. Some people got alcohol poisoning. A couple people who are affiliated with sports programs at colleges were arrested, and so it doesn't bode well for whether they're going to be able to play football later in the year, whatever. But that's all fine. You know, it's a party that got out of control. It's kind of par for the course at colleges. But not that it's right, but it's pretty common. But the article, you read it, and the question that's being asked is social media, you know, creating mayhem for young people? Now, the Facebook's page had 300 registered people. 2,000 people showed up. This is about 65 miles north of Denver. Officers had to shut down surrounding streets while they cleared out the whole apartment complex. This is Facebook's fault. These kids shouldn't have access to these kind of tools because they'll use it the wrong way. To that, I say, okay, I mean, you can say this with pretty much anything that's organized via social media. I mean, we could think of the protests in Egypt earlier this year, for example, or some silly college party in Denver. This is just a way to disseminate information. But if people really wanted to, I mean, there could have been a lot of phone calls and texts and emails sent out. It would have been more work, but it's not as if these crazy overblown parties are being. It's not the social media network's fault. It's what I'm saying, Amber. And
I totally agree with you. I mean, literally, if you read about that party and you think about some of the things that they said, like there were a couple of people got alcohol poisoning, a couple of people got hurt. I mean, I'm sure there have been lots of parties in the past, including when I was younger, where, they were raging parties, totally out of control. Too many people showed up. And I think this brings it to a different level. Maybe it's able to reach hundreds of people that much more quickly. But the reality is, I don't think it's the platform that's to blame. And I think, it's one of those things where hopefully people will start to learn one of these days that if you're going to have a party and promote it publicly on Facebook, you never really know what's going to happen. So I think it's more about how an individual is using the tool itself than the technology. People quickly want to blame the technology, but the reality is whoever created the party, they should have known how quickly this could get out of control, because it's not the first time this has happened. There have been examples of houses that have been trashed and, parties way more out of control just because it became so public online so quickly. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's an unfortunate situation, but it can't be a big surprise to anyone, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's just starting to. It's like I see these stories, and by the way, this was actually sent to us by. Oh, I didn't write your name down. I'm sorry. Somebody did send us this in our inbox at the social hour at twit.tv. This is kind of a funny story, right? Sort of a way. And it's not. I mean, it's not funny that anybody got hurt, but it's like, look, Facebook's at it again, creating these big parties where people are taking advantage of it. But I'm kind of sick of the whole thing. And someone mentioned in our chat room just now, you could always pass out flyers too, and that is true, especially on college campuses. Back before the internet, there were ways of getting the word out. So it's not the social network's fault. It's the people's fault.
It is not.
People will behave badly even if they have to be analog about it.
But, just this way people, there's a record of it all, right? Unfortunately. I always think about it. I was talking to someone the other day and saying how happy I am that when I was in high school, social networks really didn't exist to any great degree. And so, all those embarrassing photos, all that stuff, none of it could get out there. I feel very lucky to live in those times because I think it's a very different environment today.
Yeah, I really agree. Really agree. All right, so Amber, you have figured out, I don't know where you heard about this, but it's a great little social tip about sharing Google Plus content via Evernote.
Yeah, I can't remember what blog I read this on, but I was just searching for a really good tip. Wanted to talk about something you could do on Google Plus, because I know we have a lot of listeners who are currently a fan of that social network. So this allows you really to kind of sync up your Google Plus account with your Evernote account. If you don't know what Evernote is, it's a note-taking service that's been around for a long time, huge number of users. So basically, this is how you do it. I'm just going to kind of read the tip. If you use Evernote and you use Google Plus, what you can do is you can find your Evernote specific email address. That will be something that's in your account on Evernote. You can add that address into a Google circle, a new circle, and call that circle Evernote. Okay, pretty easy, right? Everybody knows there's circles on Google Plus. Then anytime you want to save something from Google Plus to Evernote, and that happens all the time because there's great content on Google Plus, all you have to do is share that piece of content, share that with the Evernote circle, and Google Plus will automatically send you that content in an email, and then Evernote will translate that into a notebook account or item in your account. So a really simple way to take content from Google Plus and get it into your Evernote world. So I think this would be handy for a lot of people out there who currently use Evernote and also love Google Plus.
That's awesome. So what you do is you create a new circle within Google Plus. Then that Evernote email address that everybody gets, which is not your email address, it's like a special email address. That's how you can email things to Evernote. That gets added into its own circle. So Evernote would be the only thing within that circle on Google+.
Exactly. So, you can set up multiple circles on Google+. So this would just be one of them. And you would just be able to kind of, share information from that circle with your Evernote notepad. So I don't know about you, Sarah, but I really like Google+. And it's interesting because I'm kind of looking for new ways that people are using it, and not necessarily hacks, but things that people have done, whether it's extensions or, little tips and tricks, because that's my favorite part about social platforms like this, is not necessarily how the companies set out to use these platforms, but how the community takes them, interprets them, and comes up with their own ideas. So fun stuff that I'm sure, Google never necessarily knew would happen, but it just eventually does, because the community kind of manipulates the service a little bit in a good way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So anybody who's like, circles, when you're in Google+, if you go into your Circles tab, which I have done, here are a bunch of people that are in a variety of circles that I have. If you go into Create Circle, that's down bottom left. Yeah, there you go. Create Circle. This is where you would add your Evernote address. So this is your description, and then you go ahead and add a person, and then that would be your Evernote. So it's almost like it's like a friendly little hack.
Yeah, it's a friendly hack. It's a positive, cheery hack.
Yay! Yay! So Amber, before we go on, I just want to. Do you feel like you love Google Plus as much as you have from the very beginning, and your engagement only grows, and do you really feel that you're as happy with it as you were when you first got access?
I actually think I'm happier. To be honest with you, I was a little bit skeptical. I think I even wrote an article where I was kind of like, meh, like not overly impressed with Google+. But I feel like lately, I feel like there's been some really great conversations happening there. I think the community, shares a lot of awesome content. So I think it's, kind of exceeded my expectations. I'm just excited, Sarah, and it's been so long. It's been a few months now. I'm excited to see them actually launch brand pages. An opportunity for companies out there to start using Google Plus in a way to kind of promote, things just like you could with a, Facebook page or whatnot. So I think that will be an interesting thing when they do that. Also, I find it kind of fun, how we were just talking about, hey, maybe we should be doing the show on a different day. I've kind of watched my engagement on Google Plus, and I'm finding, and I've done this a couple of times, I'm finding Fridays are really slow. So I wonder if anyone knows, even with social media, and I can research this too, but like, do people kind of dip off on Fridays afternoons? Because that's what I'm scared about. As far as doing anything substantial, in that time frame, because maybe people are like, okay, I'm into weekend mode, like I'm, planning what I'm doing in 8 hours.
I'm sure it's the same type. There are always studies like when's the best time. We've talked about this at length on this show. When's the best time to tweet something if you want as many people as possible to click on that link to your blog post? When are most people going to watch a show like this? When they have a spare hour? Is it going to be at lunchtime? Is it going to be after hours type of a thing? And I know Tech News Today, which obviously is a daily show during the week, on Fridays, I mean, still people are watching the show, but we notice a lot fewer live viewers than, maybe a big story on a Tuesday kind of thing. Part of that is because a lot of news doesn't break on Friday, because people who write the news know that a lot of people maybe take 3-day weekends, or they're paying less attention, or maybe they cut out to happy hour early, that sort of thing. So I don't think we'd be any exception. There are certain behaviors as far as the Monday-Friday haul goes that would hold true for us as well. Yeah, it's just something to think about. It's interesting on Google Plus that you find less engagement. The reason I asked you about Google Plus is just I'm worrying that I'm just not going as often, and it's because there are certain issues that they haven't figured out yet that are just continuing to bother me. And I know, I'm sure, 100% sure, that there's a team of community managers and engineers working on, okay, what are the top 5 things that we've got to fix before we roll this out to like even out of beta to the general public. I just don't know why it's taking so long, and maybe they're preoccupied with the whole real identity issue, which is obviously taken center stage. But
yeah,
I just, it's like, man, you got to let me collapse stuff. There's just there's scrolling issues that I have with Google Plus that I want to love it. I loved it so much for a couple of weeks, and I was like, this is going to be my new thing. But it needs to evolve. I guess I'm just being impatient.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I hate the fact that they don't let people use nicknames or other names, especially for those people who want to protect their privacy. But, I've had Google Plus open just while we're on the show just to see news items. And I just find some of the content is more interesting and a little bit different. And people have a chance to say more than other social networks. So I like that. At first, I didn't like that. I was like, 140 characters is perfect. Like, for instance, I just found out, we should probably just mention this quickly. I just saw someone post that Google Plus has just turned on their suggested users list. So just like Twitter created that suggested users list that had a lot of controversy when it first launched, telling people who they should follow, it looks like Google's done the same thing. So for new users, as soon as you log in, you can see that list. I haven't seen it. I've been on the service too long, but I don't know if anyone else has. Maybe people in the chat room or listening in can take a screenshot of what that suggested users list looks like. So I think it's just different content, right?
Yeah, suggested users. Okay, so it's interesting because it seems that really is the way that new networks who are trying to get as many people engaged as possible find is the best way to get people just using it. It's like Twitter, for example, we all kind of mumble and grumble about all the people who got on the SUL because now they have 1 million followers. And I'm like, well, I'm just as interesting as you. Why didn't I get put on the list? But it's not. I don't really care. But it's easy to say, why did they choose who they chose? But there's no doubt that it helps someone who's new to Twitter follow 100 people, and then they can decide whether to unfollow if the Ellen DeGeneres doesn't happen to be somebody that they have a lot in common with. I mean, that's easy enough to screw around with if you decide that it's in your best interest. A new service that has actually been around for a little while, but it's the first time that we're talking about it on the Social Hour, is something called Pinterest. So it's interest with a P in front of it. And
I like the name.
They have an SUL as well because I just signed up for it. Yeah, it's a cool name. And it actually has, Chad, if you go ahead and take my screen, I'm actually logged into my account. This is actually a view that I have based on when I first signed up. It said, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? It was really easy. It was stuff like, are you interested in arts and crafts? Are you interested in photography? Are you interested in fashion? What about home design? And so I picked a few really general topics, and now I'm following a bunch of people. I don't know any of these people. I went in and followed a few of my friends that I knew were already on the service. But for the most part, these are all strangers to me, but they are sharing stuff that I might be interested in. For example, this is somebody with the username Formfire, and this looks kind of cool. So if I go ahead and click on it, ooh, it's like this really neat, glassy bedroom space that maybe I'll get a little bit of design inspiration out of. So if you're wondering, Pinterest, what's this whole thing about? It actually almost has an Instagram kind of feel with their logo. That seems to be a really popular typeface these days. The idea is that it's like a virtual pin board, especially for people who kind of like scrapbooking. And I don't want to make it seem like it's just for you crafty people out there, because I'm actually not one of those people at all. But I do like the idea of saving ideas. I found my friend Crystal, who is kind of a very crafty person. Let's see if I can find one of the things that she shared recently. Crystal, who is she's expecting a baby in a couple of months, so she's figured out this whole category for playroom ideas. So this is stuff that it appeals to her, but she's able to kind of browse through Pinterest. It's almost like a catalog of people's little inspiration ideas, often design, but it can be all sorts of stuff. And then she's put together a bunch of things that she's like, this could be a really good inspiration for when I get to that point, and I'm looking to put stuff like this together, whether it's like a cute little hat or something on the wall, it's like a gears type of thing, or little owl crafts, that type of thing, or a studio office that might resonate more with people who are like, well, I don't need to build a playroom, but I really like inspiration when I'm putting together a new room in my office, for example. I mean, this is so cool. I would never think of putting something together that's really white and kind of that modern, abstract-y kind of thing. But hey, maybe I could buy a chair that looked a little bit like that and get a little closer to something that looks a little bit like this. So it's not, this is actually, the reason that I mention Pinterest suggested users is it got me engaged right away, because I don't know any of these people, and I wouldn't have, it's not that I wouldn't have gone through the trouble to follow them, I wouldn't know where to start. Pinterest is great because it's got like a little bit of that Etsy thing going on where you can actually find cool bookcases, for the bedside that you go, oh man, I love this. This is great. This was something that's shared on Pinterest, but it will give you the permalink to where it originally came from. So often you'll get dumped back to the originating site where maybe you can go ahead and buy this bookcase, or it'll be a link to buy there type of a thing. You can comment on people's designs. I haven't found the need to comment yet on anything, but I think if something struck my fancy enough, I'd want to. You can like it, or you can repin it. And repinning is kind of cool because it's not just a thumbs up, a bookmarking type of a thing. I started, my friend Crystal actually posted this picture of a woman who just kind of had this like cool hairstyle thing. Amber, I don't know if you've ever tried anything like this before, but I was like, this is neat. So I went ahead and created a little category for myself called Try This. So it's all these sorts of things that I'd like to do, but I haven't gotten to yet. And, I don't know where it came from. It's just cool.
Fun. Yeah, no, it looks really fun.
Yeah. So
again, it's all about great content, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so that's Pinterest. It's the kind of place you could get lost in. So sign up with caution. But yeah, it's really cool. And I know that a lot of the stuff that I showed seems girly. It totally does not need to be a girly type of a thing. I think sometimes males get turned off by anything that's like crafts or artsy or baby playrooms, kind of thing. It all depends on who you want to follow.
There's manly stuff there. So
there's manly stuff.
It's like dudes.
Exactly.
There's stuff out there for men. It's
Absolutely.
all good. Okay. Yeah, this question is a good one for men and women from Mark G. MrOblivious.com is his name or username, or sorry, I should say URL, which I love.
Yeah, it's good.
And I guess his question this week is all about trying to grow a fan base for his brand, and he wants to create an email mailing list so he can update fans. He wants to know if we have any thoughts on the best options for something like this, and he wants a better chance to be for them to be able to see the latest news about his brand. So I know, Sarah, you put in a really good option here, which I love.
Yeah, Tiny Letter. There are many email newsletter options out there. So Tiny Letter is one that comes to mind that I know. I know a few people who are using it currently, and it's great. It's if you go to tinyletter.com and you choose a username. It's really simple. Let's see if Sarah Lane's taken, because I don't think I've joined Tiny Letter yet, because I'm not really the best candidate to start an email newsletter service, just because I don't really subscribe to that many of them. I subscribe to a few. In fact, Sprouter, who we featured way back in the day, Amber, is one of the email newsletters that I love getting because
cool.
Because they've got all sorts of good stuff on the startup scene. But you go ahead and sign up, and then it's just as simple as putting together the group of people that you want to share with, and the formatting of the kind of content that you want to appear in their inbox once a week, or however often you're sending them newsletters. And it's a very streamlined way to put together a newsletter. It's easy to use. It's kind of what the play on Tiny Letter kind of gives you the sense that there's not a lot to it. It's a good service, but it's very simplistic. And I think a lot of people that you are going to be wanting to share content with will want it to be as simplified as possible, because newsletters are tricky. They can be really invasive and seem really pushy, or they can be done really well. So it's all about what you make of it, but this is definitely a good service to use if you're definitely set on newsletters and you know that that's how you want to share stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the only newsletter that I read religiously is the Lefsetz letter. So Bob Lefsetz talks all the time about the music industry, and I've subscribed to his newsletter forever, and it's so good. But I think you're right. There's a lot of competition in this space, so you need to write something that's really, just really well written or really interesting or timely, because a lot of people, so often they'll subscribe and then, just ditch it as soon as it comes into their account, or use a service like the unsubscribe button within, Gmail to make sure that they never get them again. So it's a tricky world, but I think it can be successful when done right.
I'm just finishing up my new Tiny Letter account. All right, I'm good to go. tinyletter.com/Sarah Lane. I'm not actually going to start a newsletter.
Sarah, you're going to regret that.
But if I want to, if I change my mind in the future, then you know where to go. Bear in chat asks, didn't Tiny Letter get bought? Yeah, actually MailChimp bought them.
Okay.
Nothing's changed as far as the way that the site is laid out, at least for now, so that's good. But yes, they have been recognized by a company, I guess, that's a little bit bigger. And so you see, once you get into your newsletter, your interface here. I can go ahead, write a newsletter, read replies that people reply to straight from the newsletter. Chad, if you want to go to my, yeah, there you go. Old newsletters, stats of people who clicked on certain things in newsletter. You know, that's interesting. That's stuff that you want because, hey, if you're not getting any engagement on your newsletter, you need to know that, right? You either need to change things up or maybe figure out a different way to get a hold of people. And then, of course, you can fool around with your design and settings a lot. So, MrObvious.com, real name Mark. Hopefully that's helpful to you. That would definitely be a good place to start anyway, although it's not your only option.
Sarah, I just signed up for the Amber Mac Tiny letter too, so just in case, but no pressure because we may not be writing anything anytime soon, but at least we own it, own each of our own usernames. Here is another email question. This individual, Pedro, he just got a job as a community manager for an online invoicing software company. They're based in Portugal, but they want to reach a larger and more global audience. So he's wondering what we recommend because he wants to tweet and use Facebook, but he really needs to do it in 2 languages. So in his case, does it make sense to do English for a global audience and Portuguese for a local audience? I think he kind of answered his own question in the sense that I think that's going to be the best approach. You know, if you're trying to hit a global audience, it seems like for what they're trying to, who they're trying to reach out there, that English makes the most sense. So unfortunately, you kind of have to have 2 different accounts, and that's a lot of work. But that's just the name of the game when you're trying to broadcast in different languages. I agree
100%. It's funny, Patrick Beja, who's a regular guest on TNT, he's French. Speaks, French is his native language. Speaks English great, but I follow him on Twitter, and he's kind of 50-50. And all the stuff that he tweets in French, I can't read. Sometimes I can glean a little information out of it, like, oh, he's talking about the touchpad type of thing. But for the most part, and I've asked him about this before, and he says, well, I just want to be myself, and sometimes I'm speaking in English to a certain amount of people, and sometimes I'm speaking French to people who can read it. And I think that works well as long as it's more of that individual brand type thing. Yeah,
sure.
But for something like, if you're doing online invoicing software, you're based in a country, where you're speaking Portuguese, you have to know that, of course, Brazil, they're going to speak a lot of Portuguese there too, but outside of that, there's not a lot of, I think English, even if English wasn't the other choice for the global language, you'd want to do something to reach a global audience besides Portuguese. I think English is your best bet. Or I don't know, maybe Mandarin these days. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. That's I think a tough one, but I think those are his only options, is to do it in both languages. Yeah. Sarah, I'm super excited to hear. I love getting voicemail on the show. It's my favorite thing. I don't know why. It's just nice to incorporate the voicemails into the show. And even the copy that you wrote in the rundown, Talk O'Clock versus Taco Clock. So I don't know what this is all about.
We got so much feedback about last week's Rad or Fad, which was the Taco Clock, which is talk, T-A-L-K-O clock. But when you hear it out loud, sometimes you get confused.
Hey, Social Hour, it's at Scott Brown 111. Taco Clock. How about a taco clock? Can you imagine a sausage, egg, and cheese taco delivered when you want to wake up? That would be awesome.
It's funny.
That
so
is awesome.
It's incredible. So many people were like, "Wait, what are they saying? Taco, yum yum, or like talkie taco clock?" Which, of course, it was the latter. But we got a lot of responses from people, Amber, both saying, "Here's my number. Please call me. I'd like to wake up at 7 a.m. tomorrow." And I was like, "I'm not going to do that because we're not. That's not really what this is about." And then a lot of other people saying, "Boy, I wish it was taco clock, as in the edible taco. That's way cooler. If there was some sort of way that I could get tacos delivered." I guess a lot of people are eating breakfast tacos these days. So sorry for everyone who thought it was the delightful Mexican delicacy taco clock. In fact, it was Talk-O-Clock. Yes.
That is so I signed up with my invite code to Talk O'Clock, just so I said I was going to do it.
You did.
So I signed up. I signed up. I logged in with my Facebook account. I went through all the people who I could call and wake up just for fun. And then I got freaked out and I was like, I don't think I want to do this. I don't want to give them my phone number because that's one thing I don't like to do, is give out my phone number online to, third-party services. I just don't feel that comfortable doing doing that. So I'm kind of waiting until, because I have a lot of loaner phones I get from tech companies, you know, to review them. So I'm waiting until I get a phone where the number's not tied to my own personal mobile phone number, and I'll try it out. But I'm about halfway there, so it's an ongoing report I'll be giving you. So we'll see what happens.
All right. I understand your reservations. The taco clock sounds like a bit of a commitment, whether you're being woken up by a stranger or waking someone else up. But yes, everyone, don't email us with your phone numbers. Not that we're going to abuse them, but I'm probably not going to become your personal alarm management system. So save that for somebody who's actually going to call you in the morning so you're not late for work. Reminder that we love hearing from you guys. We haven't had a voicemail that we could play in a while because sometimes they tend to go long, which is, it's great because you're obviously comfortable leaving us voicemails, but try to keep them to 30 seconds or less. Same goes with any sort of video that you want to shoot and send to us. We love to see you and hear you with a video. Just upload it anywhere, YouTube or Vimeo or any sort of service like that. Send us the link, and if you put video in the subject line, it's easier for it to stand out of the crowd for us. Voicemail is 2626 SOCIAL. That's our Google Voice number. It's 2626 social. And of course, the social hour at twit.tv. We read it every week. We don't, even though we can't respond to everybody, we always read everybody's emails. So know that we are listening and reading. Before we get to Amber's Rat or Fad, want to take a second to thank Netflix. They're our second sponsor on this episode of The Social Hour. Netflix.com/twit. What's that going to do for you, you ask? Because you want things for free. Good news! If you go to Netflix.com/twit and sign up, which is very easy, by the way, you get a 1-month free trial. It's really easy. Just enter an email, get a password, go ahead and continue. 30 days free of all the Netflix content that you can shake a stick at. Now, of course, Netflix it's really two services now. It's the instant streaming service. That's the one that I use because it's easy. It's very easy to watch movies or TV series right from any Netflix-enabled device, which can be your laptop or your iPad or your Apple TV or your Xbox 360, the list goes on, PS3. Or it can obviously be the Netflix DVD service, and that's where you manage your queue online. You say, I want to watch these 10 movies. Well, the queue can be endless, but let's say my next 10 movies are going to be in this order, and you can go ahead and rearrange your queue. And the DVDs will be sent to you in the mail in order of the way you want them sent. If you change your mind, you can go ahead and rearrange your queue. It's really, really easy. I've heard lots of stories about people getting mad at the other person in their household because the queue was rearranged without them knowing, and all of a sudden there's a rom-com in their mailbox, and they thought that they were getting that Harrison Ford thriller. But that's sort of the type of thing you have to work out in your own household. But if you're already a Netflix subscriber, and obviously so many of you who watch our TWiT programming say, we already know Netflix, we already love Netflix. What are we going to do with this? We've already helped out. Tell a friend. That's the best way. You know, it's kind of like our Audible offer. Tell a friend so that they can watch a bunch of stuff, really good stuff, like Jersey Shore, for example. Hey, it was up on the screen. I couldn't help myself. I happened to watch Jersey Shore. I'm not proud of it, but at least I'm admitting it here. Maybe a friend of yours is like, I don't know, is that show really for me? Have them watch for free. Have them get through the series, and they don't have to pay. Because honestly, sometimes you feel a little bit dirty paying even 99 cents on iTunes for Jersey Shore. I should know. Anyway, that's Netflix.com.
Hey, Sarah, you know what? Sarah, yeah. Anderson Cooper has admitted to liking Jersey Shore. I'm not a fan, but hey, he's a respected journalist, and he's admitted to liking it. So
see, we all have our vices. It's not good for us.
Exactly.
But it happens, okay? It happens. Don't judge me. Or go ahead and judge me, but definitely do it through Netflix.com/twit. Thanks to Netflix for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. And on to Amber's weekly Rat or Fad.
Rat or fat. I'm going to try to do this without sneezing. Okay, here is the thing. I just read about this online today. It says Domino's Japan wants to open a new store on the moon. And so what they've done is they've released a video where the head of our president of Domino's Japan is talking about this initiative. I know we have the video there. And then there are quite a few more details that you can get from the site. Maybe we could watch the video, Sarah, just for 20 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have that.
Greetings to everyone on Earth.
This isn't weird.
president of Domino's Pizza Japan. Today, I have a very important announcement to make for you. Domino's Pizza will soon be making one giant leap. And yes, we believe it will be a giant leap for all of mankind. That's right. We, Domino's Pizza Japan, will be the first, before anyone else, to open a branch on the moon.
Okay.
Needless to
probably
say,
enough.
I'm so horribly confused.
I'm terribly confused. So here's the thing, is that Domino's has a pretty long history online, even though they've gone through some controversy with social media. They have a pretty good history of doing a lot of really innovative and interesting things in the social space. And all of a sudden, I watched this and I was like, is this for real? There's also a contest attached to it. I mean, clearly it's probably a joke. There's an estimate of it would cost him about $21 billion to do this, but I have no idea. I guess my point is, putting this in the rad or fad category, is that I just think that this is one of the strangest social media campaigns I've ever seen. And with all of this really unique stuff being put out there from different brands, I sort of think this falls short, or it's just odd, or I'm missing something. I don't really know, Sarah. What do you think?
I think, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I think. I think that this is, I don't know if I'd say this is just a big joke. I think this is a clever campaign put together to get people, I mean, there's certainly a lot of people who are interested in all sorts of space travel and visits to the moon, and especially, at least in the U.S., with NASA retiring space program type of a thing. Maybe this is just good timing for them to get people excited about the idea that Domino's would like to go to the moon. I mean, the site is cool. The whole thing is it's visually exciting. I like the look of it. Obviously, this is Domino's Japan, so it's a little bit different than the Domino's experience that we'd get on the U.S. version, but I don't know how they could be serious. I think they're just trying to get people like us talking about it, and frankly, it worked.
It did work. So maybe it's rad, but I feel like it's kind of a fad, like this gimmicky kind of social media campaign, in the sense that, I don't know, I guess, you know what, I'm kind of tainted this week, Sarah, because I'm a big fan, and there's this video that we're going to show to end off the show. I'm a big fan of this initiative that was done by Chipotle restaurants. It's a great animated film that we're going to wrap up the show with. And it's so clever because it has this concept of like social good that's integrated into it, talking about, the future of food and how it has to be sustainable. That's the only thing that makes sense. So it's so clever. And then I saw this and I was like, you spent a lot of money on creating this, sort of gimmicky. And
Yeah.
I wonder, for social media campaigns, like, is this kind of a fad, these one-off gimmicky things? Whereas I think what's rad is social media campaigns that have some, higher, or trying to reach some higher level in terms of like promoting social good attached to their products. So that's my stance.
I think that this is, yeah, you're right. A lot of money got put into this. It's cute, but we have other things to worry about besides getting pizza in our moon station that doesn't exist yet.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, I think that's good, Chad. We're done with the Domino's.
I think Chad really likes that video.
Chad was like, I love this site. I'm just going to keep clicking. Look, it's a spaceship.
Chad got sucked in. I think we're the wrong audience there. Maybe that's part of the problem.
Maybe so. Yeah, if Amber and I are missing something amazing, let us know what it is. Because as far as I know, Domino's is not actually going to the moon. They just think it's kind of cute to put together a site like that. I also, and this is going to sound snobby, but Domino's would not be my pizza of choice if I get all the way to the moon. That's not real. I'd prefer another brand. I'm not going to name any name. I'm just saying, I don't want you to have the moon monopoly, Domino's. That's just not fair.
There's got to be room for everyone, Sarah, on the moon. That's basically what you're saying. Now that we've tackled this problem, I don't know when we want to introduce our goodbye video, but it's a whole other category.
Yeah, it really is. This is awesome. Before we do, I guess we should say goodbye because we'll go ahead and let the video play us out. Amber, thanks so much for I know you're busy on Fridays, so thanks for shooting this at a sort of bizarre pre-U.S. Labor Day time. It was really fun.
It's all good. We have Labor Day here too, so it worked out well. I can have Monday podcast free, but there's going to be a lot of news in the next show, Sarah. So people better watch out.
That's right. We'll get you. So thanks everybody for joining us on the Social Hour. Again, Mondays 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific is our normal time. If you want to watch us live and chat in the chat room with our fine chatters, good group of people. I'll tell you what. I've gotten to know a lot of people in the chat room, so it's like I feel like they're all my friends now. But if you don't, again, there are so many ways to subscribe, watch a show. It's always free at twit.tv/TSH. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you a week from Monday.
Take it away, Willie.
Just guessing at numbers and figures, pulling the puzzles apart. Questions of science and progress don't beat as loud as my heart. Nobody said it was easy. It's such a shame for us to part. Nobody said it was easy. No one ever said it would be so hard. I'm going back to the start.